ProSci has 3 phases of resistance management. 1 is resistance prevention, 2 is proactive resistance management, and 3 is reactive resistance management. Proactive resistance management is going out and explicitly looking for resistance and figuring out how to mitigate it. And reactive resistance management, in the ProSci terms, is a 10-step process for managing resistance, which will inevitably still occur throughout a project. And sometimes when appropriate, I also like to use the competing commitment approach to resistance, and the mitigation for that is based on the fact that resistance to change does not reflect opposition sometimes, nor is it merely a result of inertia. Instead, even as they hold sincere commitment to change, many people are unwittingly applying productive energy towards a hidden competing commitment, and the resulting dynamic equilibrium stalls the effort. And what looks like resistance, but which is in fact the kind of personal immunity to change. When resistance is persistent, sometimes it's good to use this to see if there is a competing commitment that is producing immunity from change rather than resistance per se. And they argue that immunity to change is based on the inconsistencies between individual stated goals and their actions. And to help these people move forward with change, they recommend that managers and supervisors gain an understanding of those competing commitments and mitigate them. And this is not only true of individuals, but of groups. Face-to-face teams, departments, and even whole organisations can exhibit resistance by adopting contradictions that, quotes, protect them from significant changes that they may genuinely strive for. And they suggest 4 categories for diagnosing immunity to change. And they also provide sample answers that help you guide if you choose to use this approach. Basically, for each person or each group, you've got to figure out what that group or individual is committed to, what they're doing or not doing that is keeping their stated commitment from being fully realised, list any competing commitments, and also list any associated big assumptions. Having done that, they ask you to ask several questions to help define the competing commitment and the associated big assumption. The first question is, what would you like to see changed at work so you could be more effective, or so that work could be more satisfying? And for that, you would define a response and an action. Second question is, what commitment does your complaint imply? Again, what is the response and action associated with that? Third question is, what are you doing or not doing that's keeping your commitment from being fully realised? Fourth question, if you imagine doing the opposite of the undermining behaviour, do you detect in yourself any discomfort, worry or vague fear? And the fifth question is, by engaging in this undermining behaviour, what negative outcomes are you committed to preventing? Having done that, you then create actions to overcome change immunity. And they suggest several actions. 1, notice and record current behaviour. Number 2, look for contrary evidence. Number 3, explore history. And number 4, evaluate the results. And they posit that if competing commitments are a form of, say, self-protection, then what are people protecting themselves from? And they suggest that the answer usually lies in known as what is big assumptions, deeply rooted beliefs about themselves and the world around them. And there's a great quote, "These assumptions put an order to the world and at the same time suggest ways in which the world can be disrupted. Competing commitments arise from these assumptions, driving behaviours unwittingly designed to keep the picture intact." So resistance management is a key part of change management. ProSci's 3 phases of managing resistance are absolutely critical, and what I tend to do is I will add this on to my ProSci approach and look for competing commitments and any associated big assumptions and any actions that can mitigate those. And crucially, again, when we ask the question, who does change management? Managers and supervisors that are closest to individuals and groups, and that's part of their role. You know, we know that managers and supervisors have 5 key roles in change management: communication, liaison, advocacy, resistance management and coaching. This falls quite squarely within a manager's resistance management approach and can be useful in some cases. So it's worth looking at in more detail, and I would recommend it. Hope this helps.